Well, Nick, as we go through the post-Thanksgiving into Christmas transition time, I don't know how anything could be better than being a Patriots fan at this particular moment in history.
Right.
It's almost, by the time people listening to this, it'll be December 1st. And this to me is like an advent calendar. Every day you get to pull back the piece of cardboard, and inside is a cheap stale candy that was made in Wisconsin like 8 years ago, but it's always good and it's always a surprise. And that's how this season, it began with a little bit of uncertainty. And right now the Patriots are everybody's worst friggin' nightmare. It's glorious. And coming off a win against the one team that we probably more than any other circled on the schedule and said, okay, that's going to be a tough game for them. And the Pats rolled on them in the second half. A close game for the first half, like I expected it would be. A lot of mistakes out there, but overall, they just demolished yet another opponent, and the world is horrified at what they're witnessing.
Exactly. No one cannot contest to if they were afraid right before the half when the Titans took the ball, ran 60 yards and scored. That sucked. But if only Kyle Van Noy could have secured that pick the play before, that would have been fantastic and would have sealed the deal for Black Friday weekend,
Yeah. And I think that's the kind of game that Belichick likes the most. I compared him in the knee jerk to Scotty from the Enterprise. Doesn't really care about, mission so much as he just wants to be fixing engines. And, if everything goes 100% smooth, I don't know that Belichick is as happy as he is when he gets a big win, but has stuff to fix, to, reroute the impulse power through the dilithium crystal in order to get the deflector shields back online or whatever. And so, the run defense was atrocious. That 68-yarder you mentioned, you rewatch that play, and it was a complete system failure from the top down. First of all, it was 3rd and 3, and they were in a pass set. They had one down lineman. It was Christian Barmore, obviously the best interior pass rusher. They had one guy in the middle of the field. That was Adrian Phillips, Van Noy.
Well, we were playing zone the entire game.
And Van Noy and Hightower up on the line like they were gonna rush, and then it turns into a run play. Then you get a slip tackle. Devin McCourty took a Brandon Merriweather like bad angle, rare for him. So that play sucked all the ass in the world, but it was a play. It was one bad
it
play.
Happens.
If they had a history of playing badly against the run, I'd be concerned. But I think this was an outlier. Right. Am I being way too optimistic here? I think they have the bodies. You've got a Godshaw, you've got a Lawrence Guy, you've got some good stout run stuffers. Davis is pretty good, but
Lawrence Guy started the game and he ripped right through a double team into the backfield. Literally like the first or second play of the game. It was unbelievable.
Yep.
Right by Taylor Lewan. Shout out the boys. Sorry, Taylor, but
yeah. And he's a guy you can always depend on. Like he's reliable. He will come up with a big play. Hightower and Bentley are both good against the run. So while it was ugly to watch, I'm not sitting here in this panic mode like, oh my gosh, all the next opponents are going to sit there and go, you just run against this team. Yeah, I'm concerned about Indy. Anybody would be. I don't care if you're, the
after you see what Jonathan Taylor did.
Yeah, the 85 Bears would be concerned about Jonathan Taylor, but the Bills are zero threat to run against this team, zero. And a little bit of concern because towards the end of the game, they were loading up the box and just daring Carson Wentz to beat Carson Wentz. Listen to me, Ryan Tannehill to beat him, which was not going to happen. And still they were getting run on. So a concern. Mac Jones, missing some throws.
Not the only Mac Jones. Yeah. Not the only Mac Jones thing that I want to bring up. I don't think that we talked about with our guest, but that one high-low hit towards the end of the game that he took when they were down in the red zone, and it was I want to say third down, and he got hit from below and then up top first. That one scared me a little bit. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
not cool about that one.
Yeah. And you don't want to tempt fate on that, obviously, but so far he seems like a guy that
Oh, he just bounces up.
he doesn't show ill effects from those kind of hits. Like I've yet to really see him like limping off a field or whatever. And yeah, and he had some issue early on and from camp, he was wearing a brace, but generally speaking, it seems like for a guy who is about to hit his career high in football games played in a season, doesn't seem to be wearing down at all.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, especially, I'm going to just label off another hit, but that hurt, the hit from, is it Byron, the cornerback on Tennessee? When he came absolutely after Mac threw right over him and he just missed it. And then he came back with like vengeance and ripped him off. He came off a safety blitz right off the outside and racked Mac, but he got it away quick enough. That was just like, I don't know. He's so resilient.
Yeah, and Jones got whacked by one of those last week too against Atlanta, and so you start to see a pattern. Like clearly, Vrabel saw the same thing, the delayed safety blitz, which gives a lot of guys problems. And Mac even talked about this. He goes, "Yeah, it's something you got to clean up, and it's a challenge to face that." And so that showed up on film, and now it's up on film for a second week. And the thing I like best about this kid is his ability to, miss a thing, make a bad decision, whatever, and then correct it. Like this team
he doesn't soak on it.
Has tolerance for errors, but not error repeaters. That's their term for it. I think it's great. And nevertheless, in spite of like the aforementioned glitches and the way he missed Hunter Henry, got him on exactly the route he wanted and just overthrew it.
It was a beautiful ball too.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. But he more than made up for it. The one to Kendrick Bourne, the first touchdown.
Yeah.
Putting it in the bucket like that, it was like dangling on a string. And some of the players have been talking about how he throws just a comfortable ball to catch. And I know it sounds weird. It sounds like it defies physics, but I know what they're talking about. A similar thing I will compare it to Jake Bailey's punts, just fly funny. They knuckle in some way, and you can see guys in camp and you see guys in these games like uncertain how to catch his ball. That's great for a punter. It's terrible for a quarterback, and Jones is the opposite. It's always, there. The one to Jacoby Myers, that great play over Byard. Byard came across his face and went at it. If he got his hands on that and wasn't expecting the ball, it would have just wedged into his face mask. I think he would have made the catch without his hands. But a lot of these crossing routes, the timing patterns, it's right at their Adam's apple. And then you don't see guys reaching behind them. You don't see them having a layout unless the coverage is behind them and he's trying to err on the side of leading them too much. So he puts together, I don't know if you'd say it's his best game, but his most passing yards. He cracks 310. I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure his 123.2 passer rating was the highest in football this weekend. Again, he's the reminder, this is his 12th game, and anyone who wants to sit there and nitpick about this missed throw or that one that could have been picked or whatever, fine, but just do it in the context of he had as good a week as anybody in the NFL did.
So there's a couple things I want to say about Mac. One, I would love to see him go back, and I want to see him do like the old Peyton Manning thing during the Pro Bowl week with the targets and the powder, trying to hit the targets and stuff. I'd love to see that because I think Mac would clean house in that.
Oh, and I'll add too, Brady did this a while ago in an exhibition. I'm pretty sure it was down the field at Tampa, where they just had targets on like a golf cart or something going across, and everything was right in the 10 ring of the bullseye. I'd love to see Jones do that because I don't think any of the rookies, and I might even include any of the second year guys, including Herbert, including Tua, Jalen Hurts. I don't think any of them have anywhere near the just spot on accuracy that he's showing through 12 games.
I agree. And my second point was, look, if we go back to weeks 1, 2, 3, say, when me and you were sitting here talking about how come Mac Jones hasn't thrown the ball much or this or that, you said earlier that it looks effortless when he's throwing it to Jacoby Myers, to all these guys, and the balls that they're catching, they're saying it's the perfect ball or whatever. Maybe the rhythm and the timing wasn't down yet. And it took into September, and now we're looking November. So it took all that time to get that perfect ball to them. And now, I mean, these guys it's like they're fluently connected.
Yep. A+ point by you. Give yourself 3 do your pod points. I don't know. We don't have a reward system. That's 3 sounds lame. Give yourself 10 and we'll figure out what that even means. Yeah. But yeah, it's a reminder and something that I was putting out of my head back in September, that he wasn't named the starter until the last week. And prior to that, while some practices he got more throws than Cam Newton, Newton was getting the reps with the first team. And so, September, we've said it a bunch of times on this pod, is an extension of training camp now, more so for him than anybody else, because I don't know if there's another starter in the league who wasn't the starter throughout training camp. He was winning the job instead of having the job and prepping for the job. So in that respect, you know what? It's weird that it took until the beginning of December for me to even put 2 and 2 together. So, give yourself 5 more do your pod points. I appreciate that.
And my last 2 things, one's about Mac and one's about defense. One, Mac Rookie of the Year. Do you think I think that's more of a possibility now.
It's a lock at this point.
I think so. And 2, Defensive Player of the Year for the entire NFL. I think Mr. Judon is coming up very highly on that.
Yeah, that would be a much deserved reward for him. It's probably going to go to whoever leads the league in sacks. Unless somebody, unless some cornerback has some insane, number of picks or whatever,
he's close to
puts
Garrett.
Together a kind of year like Gilmore did a couple years ago. But yeah, and here's the difference between him and Garrett. And Garrett's great. Judon, if you take all the edge players in the NFL, he is 4th overall in dropping into coverage. And still he's got double-digit sacks, and still he's making tackles for losses and quarterback hits or whatever, while being asked to do other things. And I don't think he's especially great in coverage, but this is a scheme and this is how it's going to be. And it doesn't matter who comes into this defense. They're not going to say, okay, just, hand on the dirt, pin your ears back, go after the quarterback every single down, and we'll figure it out around you. You're going to set the edge. You're going to be stout against the run. You're not going to get caught diving inside or whatever. And so, yeah, I watched him time and again on these pass plays by Tannehill, back of the section, having a seam curl flat responsibilities. But when they do have him rush, he's probably on a per rush average far and away leading the league in terms of getting into the quarterback's grill mix. It's freaking amazing to watch.
I know.
And I love the personality he brings to it. Not that counts. He could be the dullest guy in the world and play just as well, and I'd be happy. But I don't know. He just has a way about him that seems like it's infectious. Yeah, very much.
And my last thing I want to say before we go to our special guest is I'm going to take 5 more do your pod points, because I think I called something from last week on the pod. And you know what that was? Our guy, Jonnu Smith. What did I say? He was going to have a very good game against his hometown team.
Yeah, you called it. And you've been on the where's Jonnu Smith been trained for a while. So your patience and your loyalty and your desire to see this is finally paid off. I'm taking the points away just because you watching him throw, have his best game for the team. Should be its own reward. If I could take him, I'm in
That's right.
a given mood. But yeah, and not huge numbers, but
No.
you've got two tight ends. Like nobody went into this thinking that one of them was going to dominate the league or have 100 catch season or any of the sort. But the numbers over the last, I think it's like 4 games when Jones targets his wide receivers are off the charts. It's something like, I think 130 passer rating and, like 80% completion percentage, like insane. Well, how is he hitting the receivers outside the numbers, crossing routes or whatever? It's because he's got 2 tight ends that have to be accounted for.
Right.
And
he only
throw
did
Brandon
49
Bolden into that
yards.
as well. Is it?
I love Bolden. But, I mean, Smith only had 49 yards, 3 receptions, but his longest was 20 yards, the one across the middle, and that was a great reception. But
oh, yep. I'm glad you mentioned
huge.
that. I have a thought.
Mm-hmm.
That screen pass that he had on it was a 3rd and 10, and this set up the first touchdown. So the drive's about to stall out, and he catches a screen and he goes for like 11. But what I loved best about the play is Jones had a look on the backside of the play with Kendrick Bourne. Yep, pump fake that, got the defense to bite, and then hit Bolden, and it was just seamless. It was like he'd been running that play for 10 years. It's just smooth. People bite on the fake. That's how you get a team to have to defend all 53 in a third. That's how you put stress on them, because he could have gone either way. And I don't know if it was designed for him to go to Bolden with a pump fake, or if he had a look, and if the defense had loaded on Bolden, he would have gone to that. All I know is he knows, he's completely in command. Another great kind of smaller moment in there was Bourne's second touchdown. The one with the dig route, and he turns it upfield, and he runs up the sidelines. So Jacoby Myers is upfield on that one, and he's in this scrum of defenders. And rather than make the mental error of trying to block for him, because that's a penalty. If you turn around and block away from your own end zone, that play's coming back. He just stood his ground and let them run into his back. Yeah, exactly. He set up a little pick
reverse
and roll.
Pick, but
it was Shaq for Kobe, or it was Jacoby in this case.
Jacoby.
And then Bourne finishes it off with a stiff arm, and maybe we'll wrap up with this. My favorite clip of since the game itself was, so the Patriots released their locker room footage afterward, and Belichick and Bourne go up to each other and like, hey, what about the stiff arm? And it's almost like they've turned this into a handshake. Well, it just happened like a couple of hours before. And then Belichick's like, thanking everyone. And we didn't turn the ball over. We got 4 turnovers, shut him out in the second half, got some things to work on. Hey, where's my man? And Bourne comes out and, again, like the offensive side of Judon, just this big personality. And, they start, where's the stiff arm? And they're doing that. So I don't know. This is a team that has clearly been galvanized from the beginning. Yeah. And I think it's just, you see how, Jones is like all business in the locker room, but it's not in that way like Brady's last couple of years, where you could tell he was just, resting puss on his face. And by 2019 was already knew he was leaving or whatever. Everyone's just fully engaged and locked in with one another. And the team chemistry is just off the charts right now.
Yeah. And I think on the offensive side of the ball, Kendrick Bourne was the best pickup that the Patriots made in the offseason. But I think it's time. You want to announce who we're talking to today?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much to go over here as we speak. The Pats are number 2 in the conference playoff race. I think their odds are like, what's their odds of making the playoffs now? It's something like it's like 81 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 70s though before the game, and then it went up high.
And if you go back to September, it was like 21% or whatever. So that's what a 6-game winning streak will do. Well, our guest this week, she's a friend of mine from a few years back. She used to cover the Patriots for Fox 25 in Boston, WEEI. She was on NFL Network. She's currently on covering the Miami Heat. So we lost yet another New England treasure to friggin' Florida. But she was a great guest. I had a blast talking to her. Courtney Fallon. All right, Nick, roll tape. Courtney Fallon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was last summer that I was on your podcast. That's the last time we spoke, right?
We were reminiscing at the end of the 2020 season. This was almost to New Year's, because I can remember us having this really postmortem sadness about the future of the New England Patriots and why a 500 season was just going to destroy everything that they had planned. It was just going to set them back because of the mediocrity that they experienced during that year. And then, wow, look what happened. Bill came out in free agency, guns blazing. And, now our fortunes have been changed, and everyone owes an apology to Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. And it feels oh so good. We're a day before December 1st. This is when the real football starts. Jerry Thornton, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, really appreciate you joining us. Because, I think we kind of need a do-over, because it was so dark and depressing the last time we talked. And even if it was the summer, I think you would have found me cautiously optimistic, but not nearly this optimistic. Like in my wildest dreams, and certainly back before free agency, my optimism was this before free agency, that Belichick has positioned this team to be able to do dramatic things. The question was he going to actually go out and do it, because it hadn't been done before? And then the national dynamic was, the game has passed him by. Yep. Look at what Brady just did to him. It was him all along. And if you're a free agent, and I heard this like ad nauseum, you're a free agent, why would you go there?
Yeah.
They don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Yeah. It's going to be Cam Newton. They're going to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Don't know. The only reason anyone ever signed there before was to play with Tom Brady. So what does he do? He goes like an oil sheik in Vegas on a shopping spree, or like Milan or Paris or something. It just throws a ton of money around, and had the greatest spending spree that we've ever seen, and then crushes it in the draft. And now it's everybody outside of New England's worst nightmare come true.
Yeah, I've saw a couple of Jets fans. I know personally some Jets fans of friends who are husbands of my friends. If that makes sense. I'm 34, so we get to that point where they're not boyfriends. They're married into a family of Jets fans, and they're like, I already fucking hate this kid. This kid, Mac Jones. He literally, it's like the Jets fans. He's like, good, that kid, Mac. I already hate him. But listen, that's exactly what you said. And I had Louis Riddick on my show, Bad Signal Podcast. You can subscribe and join us for the weekly fun. And I had Louis Riddick on, and this quote that he said, unprovoked. Thank you, Louis. He had some insider information, but he basically said, I would bet the house that Bill Belichick is going to come out firing in a way that you've never seen in free agency. And it was all over the talk show circuits. I mean, First Take, it was on Get Up, it was on all the local stations, which was great, but nobody believed him. Nobody believed anything that they were saying, including Felger. He's like, yeah, I'm calling BS on this. But that was the big question, was Bill has this immense purse to spend. He has a once in a lifetime shot. Clearly, he knows exactly what he's doing in the draft. So preemptively, let me go get the pieces that I need to. And, that was also a very big question as well, was I asked it, if you are a free agent, why would you go to New England? Is Bill Belichick a draw as a free agent? Would you go play for Bill Belichick if Tom Brady wasn't there? And the answer is yes. And I think that even more so with the patience that Belichick has had with his young team, I can't tell you, I'm sure that you were ripping your hair out while you're watching this offense They're at 4th and 1, games 2, games 3, being very patient, not letting Mac Jones unleash down the field. There wasn't really much of a downfield passing attack, and we're ripping our hair out. Like, just let the kid play. You know, why are you punting on 4th and 1 on the 40-yard line? Just go for it. The Patriots, I think, statistically, if you're talking about the numbers and all that stuff, they were at the bottom of the NFL, number 32 in terms of going for it. So you know what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah,
going for
positively.
it when you had the opportunity to go for it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a league-wide trend
yeah,
to go for it on 4th down, but even that like took a backseat to me, to the fact that I think it was 4 or 5 games in that he threw his first attempt into the end zone. Like, he had
Yeah.
touchdown passes, but it was,
Yep.
you know, hitting Nelson Aguilar on a slant and him carrying it in or whatever. And, you know, if you saw him in training camp, you knew like this is a guy who can throw deep balls and
Yeah.
hit timing patterns and, you know, hit a guy on a post or on a corner route. And now we're seeing it, you know, every week virtually. And you say, okay, you know, whatever that cost them at the beginning of the season, it's all in the past now. And now he's got Jets fans talking about how much they fucking hate him, which is just, you know what? I wish I had more Jets fans in my life, because that would be a joy to listen to. Instead, what I'm doing now, my routine is on Mondays, I'm going through all the cable channels and all the YouTube clips or whatever to find people that are being driven insane by this. It's, you know, it's my Hallmark Christmas movie. Like, you know, like picture me in like a Snuggie, you know, some blowing on a coffee cup.
You have the Feety pajamas.
Yes,
Feety pajamas, fleece.
yes.
Fleece.
That on the bottom of the sock says, like, you know, if you can read this, it means I'm watching the NFL media cry. So don't bother me, seriously. And then I weep like at the end of a Hallmark movie, and it's been beyond my reckoning. Like, I was optimistic. I wanted Mac Jones. I can't say this enough. I predicted back in late March that they'd draft him. He was exactly the guy that I thought would be the perfect fit. Even I, in my wildest fantasies, didn't picture it as, like, right now they're the number 2 seed, and more than half of the pundits are saying that they have the best chance to make it out of the AFC. I thought that would happen eventually, but before December in 2021, I wasn't seeing it. Did you see this in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I did get an insider tip from someone. This guy is a longtime coach out of the Baltimore area, and I don't know how he said this, but he told me that in July that Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells had a secret lunch that lasted 5 hours. And this is the only time I've heard of this, but I believe this guy because he's in the know, that they had a lunch that lasted 5 hours or in the spring. And Bill told Parcells, Mr. Dwayne Parcells, that he hopes that they are way ahead of schedule than what they assumed that they would be, and they expect to be back in the Super Bowl next year. So, with that being said, this is way before we went through training camp and Mac Jones outright beat Cam Newton. They made the decision to cut Cam Newton, ruffled a lot of feathers, surprised a lot of people, but not really so surprising because this kid, just given the conditions of what he was playing through, the days of back-to-back days of perfect throwing passes and just understanding the offense, and word that Rob Ninkovich was saying, that he had to help Cam learn the offense. I mean, you can see that it was cut from a different cloth when he's playing for Nick Saban, that he knows what he's stepping into and he knows that he is up for the challenge. Not only that, but Mac Jones, I mean, I think his greatest attribute, outside of that, he's a little fucking crazy. I mean, you read some of the Patriots books, you know that Tom's got a couple of screws loose. This kid's might be even crazier. Takes everything very seriously, but he's a tough ass kid, man. There are some hits that guys will be coming in sideways and knocking him down, and you're like, oh man, I wonder if he pops right back up. He's got the intangibles to lead this team, but Did I see this coming? I will say this, given that I've been a Patriots fan all of my life, 1996, the Patriots went to the Super Bowl. The Green Bay Packers was 9 years old. That was my first love. My first love was that team. I think you and I know, seeing the Patriots go and win 6 rings, you know what it takes, and kind of the eye test, even though that's a word that we're forbidden to say as sports reporters now, especially just in baseball. The eye test of, you can feel when a team is coming together at the right time and they're clicking, and there are certain things that are aligning, like around the like a highly charged atom. It's just, things are starting to come into place. And this team clicking at this time, with the defense playing as well as it is, with guys like Matthew Judon and Kyle Duggar and JC Jackson being the elite cornerback that he is, and just the team mentality, and just that you can see that this team is way ahead of schedule. I don't think there's going to be very much outside of injury, and we'll knock on wood with that, that's going to be able to knock this team off, because the stars are aligning in terms of where they're playing. They're getting very opportunistic in terms of coming into teams. They met a Tennessee Titans team that was on a tear, but they had a lot of injuries going down the stretch. I think the Buffalo Bills have shown their weaknesses, that Bill is well aware of how to take down and put down the former top of the AFC East, and kind of put him down for good. I think you can tell, Jerry, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this team is positioning themselves to be invincible down the stretch. And I'm saying invincible very lightly and enthusiastically, as as a fan and an impartial journalist, but you can just that they're coming together at the right time.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I want to get a little into the specifics of what like the last month and a half has been, but just kind of broad strokes. I don't know if you know this about me, but on rare occasions, I make references to movies.
Yes.
And sometimes apply those to sports, and other times in serious parts of life, I find myself going, I'm going to make some sports metaphors. But while we're talking sports, there's a movie that probably came out the year you were born, but I recommend it. Kind of forgotten to time. It's called Broadcast News. I don't know who wrote it, but it's kind of like a Judd Apatow kind of vibe to it. It's like a love triangle.
Do I remind
whatever.
you of a character in it?
No, this is relating to the Patriots, where so William Hurt is this guy he's a newscaster, but he's just a feckless, empty-headed like rube, but he looks good on camera, and he becomes super successful. And he says to this guy, Albert Brooks, who's like this hardworking journalist who's just a fat, dumpy slob, and so he's not successful on camera. And he goes, so the good-looking guy says, what do you do when your real life exceeds your dreams? And the answer he gets is, you keep it to yourself. Well, the Patriots this year are exceeding even my best dreams of them. And I shuddered.
Analogy. I like that.
Thank you very much. It
makes you
was
think. I was like, I don't know. You kind of rhetorically asked that to someone who's also a journalist. I'm trying to answer that question in my head, and you keep it to yourself.
Yeah, perfect answer. And the rest of the world would love us to keep this to ourselves. The last thing that they want to hear. There was a great moment where on ESPN, where Ryan Clark, so longtime Steeler, played for the Giants. So that his football upbringing as a pro football player was to despise the Patriots with every molecule in his body. And he 4 weeks ago said, the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. And it was like you had shot Rex Ryan in the neck with a poison dart. Like he collapsed on the desk. Like, no. Not because he was disagreeing, just because he realized this is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought I was free of this. And then just recently this week, they compared him to Belichick to Michael Myers, that he just keeps coming back. And this last month and a half has been that writ large. So the numbers are this, not to get too much into them, because there's
I'm kind of like a numbers geek. I appreciate that.
Okay, because I was so charming and cute in school that I got other people to do my math for me.
Oh,
So yeah, I try not to have too much counting on these tests, but the last 6 weeks,
yep,
they have the number one defense, which
yep,
you can just tell from watching the games.
yeah.
But what people have missed is that they've also got the number one offense. And again, 6 weeks, not a small sample size. So they've outscored opponents 211 to 63. That's just a little over 35 to 10 on average. So this isn't, they're sneaking by mediocre teams or whatever. The Titans are legitimate.
Yeah.
Yes, they were banged up. I get that. But every game against the Titans, no matter who you are, especially for the Patriots, it's fought in an alley with trash can lids and broken bottles.
Yep.
And they outscored them 20-0 in the second half. They just grind teams down. They might spend a quarter figuring out how this game is going to go,
Yep.
but they make adjustments and then are just physically punishing. And again, that's on both sides of the ball, both sides of the trenches. And beating a Mike Vrabel team, no matter how hurt they are, that's a sign that you are absolutely to be feared by anyone that you play.
Well, I think that when they approached this game, it was just kind of like you had this assumption that Mike Vrabel was going to come in there and was going to show them a few things. Like, you're going down that roster chart and you're like, all right, what practice squad wide receiver are they going to pull out with some trickery to get them to move the chains? I think that everything was on the table. I think that every time, you play a Mike Vrabel team, who's, by the way, hand in hand with John Robinson, who is the general manager there. He spent 15 years, I believe, with the New England Patriots in that organization. So they're cut from the same cloth. And it's almost fighting yourself in the mirror, that they're going to smack you in the mouth and they're going to move the chains by any means necessary. But they're also going to statistically and strategically know how to shut down, an offense that, seemingly is on a roll. And I think that there were a couple of the red zone offense is a little concerning to me. It's not Tom Brady automatic, but that miss to Hunter Henry in the end zone by Mac Jones was a little forgettable. The first pass that we saw with him connecting with Kendrick Bourne, my guy Kendrick Bourne, as Bill Belichick said, if you saw that post game, yeah, he loves him. But yeah, I just, again, I think that the weapons, especially seeing Jonnu Smith had a breakout game once again. We haven't heard his name in a long time. I think that things are really clicking on all cylinders. And the only thing that worries me about this season, Jerry, and correct me if you think differently, is I think that as much as Bill is the general manager of this team, I think as much as since that Cowboys game, I think that there was kind of a flip of the switch in terms of who's taking control of this. That, that 3rd and 25 play when the Patriots allowed the Cowboys to move the chains, and it was just like what they were calling defensively. The Bill's now putting his hands in every single corner of this organization, and he's calling the plays on defense, or whether it's coming from him and his son is, is the puppet to this, or how much Sherrod Mayo is calling plays as well. I think that there was kind of a flip of the switch in terms of what Bill was controlling on defense. Now, if the Patriots go to the Super Bowl, you would have to assume that Josh McDaniels, who is incredibly important to the progression of Mac Jones, and I said this too when he cut Cam Newton, I said, this was Josh McDaniels' decision more than it was Bill Belichick's decision, because they were allowed to, with Mac Jones, to run an offense that is similar to Brady, that it was just kind of right back in the wheelhouse that Josh McDaniels is able to do. If Josh leaves, who's going to be the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots? Because, I could tell you that, whether or not Josh decides to leave or he wants to leave, he really only has one last shot at this, that if he's going to be in all his glory and take possibly Matt Nagy's job when he loses it at the end of the season for the Bears, do the Patriots and their offensive coordinator, do they have an heir apparent? I'm not sure, unless they bring back Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, and I don't mean to dismiss the point, other than to say, that's a that's a champagne problem to have.
Yeah,
Because,
no, I
you know,
mean,
when
it's
you're,
just,
when you're
it's not
7-9 last year and you're running the, you know, that 1930 Akron Pros offense, and you've got like 8 passing touchdowns, or I think they had 12, but like 4 of them were by backups or wide receivers.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah,
like all
then
the
you
trick
generate
plays.
very little interest. But I think that, you know, teams what would be attractive about McDaniels is what he's proven he can do to develop a quarterback. So
Yes,
that
exactly.
means that you've developed a quarterback. And the thing about this team is they've always managed to have that next guy in place. Because, all right, this last year, the big loss that they had, like, oh my God, how are they going to withstand the loss of Nick Caserio? Well, they've had already more
More hits in the
assets
draft.
out of this draft than they've had in years. A couple of years before was they lost Joe Judge as their special teams coordinator. I would dare say they have as good a special teams as there is in the league. And
Yeah.
then the guy, you know, down where you're living now, Brian Flores, you know, he came off a Super Bowl where they shut down one of the 12 greatest offenses of all time and lost him. And they've got the number 1 defense in the league. And I'm not saying that it's all Belichick. I think that because he has this kind of top down and then down to the top approach to how information flows or whatever, and
Yeah.
where game plans come from, that he's always got somebody in the pipeline,
Yep.
you know. So I don't know who that guy would be, but then I didn't know who's going to take over for Caserio. And now Caserio is cursed with being down in that goat
Yeah.
fuck down in Houston.
Dreadful
And
place.
yeah.
Well,
And
you know, that was what they also brought in, this guy Elliot Wolf. And although I'm not keen to things that are going on within the organization in certain titles and stuff, but it seems as though Elliot has kind of positioned himself as the Scott Pioli of times past. And you know, just the talent evaluation that was the biggest question. Although Bill says that he doesn't read all of the tabloids and doesn't listen to, it seems as though Bill this year, he kind of put his ear to it. I mean, would you not say so? That it was like, this is the end of the line, that he really, really hated when during that season, the people were starting to question his play calling. And it's just like, you know, every pundit, it was just like, every idiot that's going to call into sports radio is going to give Bill a suggestion about how to move the chains with Cam Newton at quarterback. And, you know, and that was just Bill's biggest fucking nightmare. And I really think he sat down, and whatever he did, just whether it was with Parcells or it was bringing in a guy like Elliot Wolf, I think he really went soup to nuts, top to bottom, and said, this is what we're fixing, and we're fixing this now. And he put all hands on deck. And now everyone deserves to apologize to him, because listen, he's 28 wins away from tying Don Shula. Man, if you want to say he's ahead of schedule, what he is doing at, you know, a tender age of 69, he was born the same year as my mother. So 1952. So he'll be 70 in April of next year. And what he is going to be doing as an aging head coach is almost as great as we have seen of anyone. I mean, who is he comparing himself to? Pete Carroll? God, that Seahawks offense made me want to fucking throw up. I bet them live money line last night, and I was watching that game, and I was like, why do you suck so bad? Why?
Right.
And I also predicted that they were gonna run out of luck, all that, like last second Russell Wilson miracle plays, and we're gonna win for 10 wins. The Seahawks are playing to the exact record that they should.
Oh God. And that was a dynasty that was going to be around for a decade or more. And yes, they've lost some guys, everybody does, but they've still got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and it's completely not working.
Oh, it's not working.
In the case of Pete Carroll, no one's going, well, the game has passed him by. He doesn't understand, how to coach in the NFL anymore, but Belichick literally gets that thrown at him every time the Pats struggle, every time they have a bad first month of the season. It's like, and you don't have to travel to hear it. You hear it in New England, like every time you turn on the radio. It's insane to me. And then those same voices just find excuses when the Pats look like this, and they don't look around the rest of the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Russell Wilson, yes, talented guy, looked worse than Mac Jones has looked at any
Oh,
point in his 12-game NFL career. And watching Baker Mayfield, and I'm watching it because we were all counting on Cleveland to maybe knock off Baltimore and
I
give the
had
Pats the
Baltimore
one.
-3. I was kind of rooting for Baltimore.
Good Lord, how bad does Baltimore have to play in order to lose to that team?
Yeah.
I think the last time somebody threw 4 interceptions in a game and won, it's been like 15 years or something like that. I
Yeah.
think it's happened maybe 5 times in the history of the modern NFL. That's a testament just how bad things are in Cleveland, a team that gave Kansas City a game last year in the playoffs. And there's so much bad football around now that if you're really judging the Patriots against, instead of judging them against perfection, if you're judging them against the other 31 teams, you realize they can play with and beat anybody.
Yeah. Well, it's really like what I was saying about you looking at the Patriots. And first of all, the AFC North is one of the worst divisions in football right now, outside of the Bengals and smacking the Steelers in the mouth for the first time. I think that was the largest victory since the 80s for the Bengals, getting swept by the Bengals. Listen, they've done their due diligence. Happy for the people in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is really coming into his own. They deserve the success, and there's nothing better that I like to see than a stale old Christmas tree like Big Ben just falling on. He's like an old man who forgot how to use his legs. I mean, is there any other? I'm not the funny one here, but it's just like, holy shit. It's like the Christmas trees that I've had like in my childhood. I'm Jewish too, so I mean, like, happy Hanukkah to everyone here.
Yeah, when
But, like,
you
the
see him
Christmas-
coming on and off the field,
just-
he walks like a guy
oh,
who is going to do that thing that every guy of a certain age does: go up to some working guy and ask him what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like you see a guy on a ladder working in a drop ceiling. Ben looks like the guy's going to go over and go, "So what do you got there? What are you working on the ductwork? Is that a Phillips head, or is that you might want to reverse the flow on that valve."
in
But he's still
1992,
playing quarterback.
I worked on that building and I built that one. So, and then goes on some tangent about
put a fishing hat on him and stick a pipe in his mouth and let him call his wife mother. But for the love of God, in no way, shape, or form does he look like he belongs on a center for an NFL team. And
the Steelers have a quarterback problem, which makes me happy. One of my favorite lines from Pats fans say is, with you guys, like, why do I feel like we go to Pittsburgh every fucking year? Every year. It was just, it's always with the Steelers. It's always makes me smile when that dynasty or that rivalry has moved on. If we've moved on to someone else, give Bill a new challenge. But again, with the New England Patriots and the way that they're playing right now, you can just tell that there are certain teams that are exposing their flaws. I mean, we are in the final quarter of the season here. And I think that the Patriots have really figured out, outside of a couple more tests that they have coming down the road. And I do think that the Bills will give them everything that they've got. But at least in my opinion, I thought that Brian Dable and Josh Allen were going to have a much bigger year than they've had. It's just kind of been hit or miss, especially with the two of those, Brian Dable, who won 5 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, and the brilliance that he has done, building up Josh Allen and that offense. But when I saw that Tre'Davious White went out with an ACL tear,
huge.
It's not good, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the injuries are going to happen, and you don't want to wish anything upon a great opponent. But that's a huge blow to that Buffalo Bills team. And I'm not really so sure that I'm still calling BS on the Kansas City Chiefs and their reemergence. I think that right now, relatively speaking, if the Patriots are staying healthy, that they have the easiest, not the easiest, but the best path to storm down through the playoffs. And I'm not going to say the SB word, but again, I just think that they have a tremendous strength, and they've really figured out with this kid on how to balance the offense. And he is still learning, but you see a gradual progression with Mac Jones every year. And it's funny to me, the curmudgeonness, of all these people that traded in their Patriots jerseys for a Tom Brady jersey, and they're just like, oh, I root for the Bucks now, and how pissed they are.
Oh God. Yeah.
How pissed they are that the Patriots are coming up, and they just refuse to give any credit to what the Patriots are doing.
Oh yeah, my personal journey on this has all been played out in public, and I apologize if I've said this to others before, but I know people who didn't hesitate to run out and get themselves a Bucks jersey and a Bucks hats or whatever, and just said, friends of mine who said, I hope the Patriots lose every game, and I'm on record as sticking with Belichick throughout this, even when it was at the absolute low point where he was pantsed in public by Brady, not only winning the Super Bowl, but winning it convincingly and being overjoyed, and the parade on the boat and throwing the trophy and all that other crap. And, if you stuck with this team and said, Belichick will figure it out, these are great days. And again, the Bills were supposed to dominate this division for the foreseeable future. And I'm with you. Like, if I'm a Bills fan right now, I'm not thrilled about the way they can get totally trucked by a Colts team and then put up a great game the next week. You know what I mean? Like, I'm about consistency, or an upward trajectory, and they're a roller coaster. They are the Yankee Cannonball at Canterbury Lake Park. It's up and it's down with them, and that's a flawed team. While we're talking flawed, this triggered me. The way the Pats played this week, because I don't want to have it all be too much positivity here, but there were terrible flaws in that game. Are you concerned by the fact that they gave up 250 yards on the ground without Derrick Henry?
No, because again, like I said, you're playing specifically, you're talking about, this is a chess match between Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. And, Mike Vrabel was going to eat up yards on the ground and expose any weaknesses that he believed that the Patriots had in the ground game. He was going to do it. So, moving the chains by any means necessary. I think that there are certain things that if you did not have any flaws at this point in the season, there are things to work on. And, I still have great confidence in, this kid, Christian Barmore, what he is doing in that interior of the defense. What a steal. I knew that he was going to be a great pickup, a second round in the draft out of Alabama. I think that there are situational football, and it's also playing to the strength of what each team brings in. And again, they were depleted. You know what you're going to get out of Derrick Henry. You know that you're going to take away their number one threat. I'm not sure without AJ Brown and Julio Jones and whoever Derrick Henry, everyone, could you have sat there before that game and said, Ryan Tannehill, which I've said he sucked ever since he was a Dolphin. He actually really doesn't like me. I was very public in saying like this guy really sucks. And when I was a reporter down here in Miami for the first time, but Bill knows that you take away their strengths. And I'm not really so sure that you walked into that game and said, oh, this is the strength of the Tennessee Titans. So
did Ryan Tannehill have words with you? Did he come at you? Or did he just was he passive aggressive?
I was very outspoken in saying that you got to remember this guy at Texas A&M. He was a quarterback for 2 years and a wide receiver for 2. And this was the perfect Jeff Ireland draft that Jeff Ireland, who doesn't know how to draft, he's cowboy boots on the ground. It was one of the greatest mistakes of the Miami Dolphins organization. And I'm not saying, Chris Greer is not out of the woods just yet, but the Dolphins have had some issues with their personnel and drafting, much like the Patriots do as well. But Jeff Ireland jumped up and went 8th overall to go draft this kid that had no experience. And Ryan Tannehill's progression as a quarterback for the Dolphins took a little longer than it needed. Oh, he's got a cannon for the arm, but he doesn't got the quarterback moxie. And, you know, it's taken him he's been in the league, 8, 9 years, 9, 10 years.
Right.
All right. So he's a serviceable quarterback, but under no circumstances did the Tennessee Titans. I mean, he could go out and have 2 touchdowns and 175 yards, and Derrick Henry would have 4 touchdowns and control the pace of the game. I mean, no team is going out of their way to have Ryan Tannehill be the MVP. And it was a struggle, and it was an issue when he was the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. And I just I worked at local NBC down here for 2.5 years. And Joe Rose, who is like the Scott Zolak with a little more of a brain. I'm not saying a brain. He's a little more dialed in. He literally is Zolak.
Scott Zolak is a regional treasure.
Okay, no, but
I just want to be on record as defending him. But
Joe Rose caught Dan Marino's first touchdown pass. He was the tight end. He is Scott Zolak, and I mean, he's fucking hysterical. But Joe also does the play-by-play for the Dolphins. So just imagine the two of them. So, you know, being on the set with Joe, I was very outspoken that I just didn't think. I think Tannehill sucks. And when I got the job at NFL Network, I had a Thursday night game to cover in Cincinnati. I believe it was Cincinnati. Yes. Cincinnati was a Thursday night game with the Dolphins and the Bengals. And I stood outside because I still had a number of players that I was really close with, Rashad Jones and Mike Pouncey I was super close with. So I was like giving high fives out of the tunnel. I was like, hey, and they're like, Courthouse, good to see you. Oh my God. And Tannehill walked by and, he gave me a dirty look.
Oh, nice. So he was aware of your work.
I looked at him and smiled, and he was, I was like, listen, like I deserve that. Like, you know, I've been very outspoken to not like him.
Did you run afoul of any, I'm sorry, finish.
No. I just, you know, like you always wonder, listen, like if you think that you're just going to be a talking fish and get out there and say that certain teams suck and not feel the wrath and the conscience of that player that you say that sucks. I mean, trust me, they might read the headlines. Someone's going to tell them like, hey, that girl keeps saying like that you're not good. Whatever. I mean, I have no plans to interview Ryan Tannehill in the future or anything, but
okay. Well, when you were covering the Patriots, so you're with Fox 25 and WEEI, did you incur the wrath of anybody you covered there, like player or coach? Or?
No, I've always been a big supporter of Bill. I've always been kind of the, impartial, but team coach and team Bill more than just slightly more. I would say 60-40, slightly more than Tom. But I don't think so. I think in terms of the Patriots locker room, the biggest thing for me was when I was a one-man band, my first job in the business in 2011, when they went to the Super Bowl and lost for the second time to the Giants. That was the Super Bowl in Indianapolis. And I covered that team.
Yeah. I have no memory of that. I don't.
You still remember.
That's all a blank in my life. They lost 2 Super Bowls to the Giants.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know that either. No,
yeah. That memory is buried at the bottom of a sea of bourbon and IPAs, but yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, in 2011, you were a one-man band working for
for ABC6 in Providence, and I carried my own 30-pound tripod and 40-pound camera and set up all my stuff by myself. And they never gave me a wireless mic, so I always had cords. And I was always the girl that everyone's like, "Hey, do you need help?" And I was like, "No." I was walking around with heels, and I set everything up, and I busted my ass. And when I got the job at NFL Network, it's the same role that Mike Giardi does terrifically as a Patriots insider. And eventually I moved on to do not only the Patriots, but I did Thursday Night Football as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I came back into that locker room, there was just an immense amount of respect from Rob Ninkovich, from Devin McCourty, who's like a brother of mine. I've known him since he came into the league, and just every player in that locker room that looked back and said, damn, like, you deserve this. Like, you worked, everyone remembered when I was that girl that carried all their shit around. So, you know, in terms of like me cutting into anyone that I thought that, you know, played poorly, I don't really think that we had the opportunity to do that. The year that I came back and I was covering with Fox 25 and eventually moved over from the summer into the fall was 2016, where we had a carousel of 3 quarterbacks that we hadn't seen in just about 5 years. And you know, it was the Brady suspension and Deflategate. It was the end of Deflategate, and Jimmy Garoppolo and the AC joint, and then Jacoby Brissett. And you know, I think people were more concerned about who was going to be helping the Patriots out to a 4-0 lead before Brady came back and obliterated the Cleveland Browns in week 5. So I think that things were fine, and then they wound up winning the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons that year. So
That one I remember.
Yeah. That one
I think it's overstated how hostile they are to the press. Like, not that you have to kiss their asses. I don't think they require that. It's just, if you're not just some bomb tosser, if you're not just, you know, slant your coverage all the time, everything's a disaster, everything is, you know, falling apart at all times, which some people do. If you just be an objective or whatever, they give you respect. And I mean, in my case, like, they've always been good to me, in spite of the fact that, unlike you, I've never done an honest day's work in my life. So but if I call up, hey, I need to press pass for training camp, okay, I get that. So, you know, good for you. They just, you know, respect there is a two-way street, I think, is what it is. And if you're going to get up there and ask snarky questions, like, you know, the famous Deflategate press conference, Tom.
Well, I mean, but like, also too, I just think the funny thing is that I often kind of go in and think about certain things that when I went from the Patriots locker room to go cover the Miami Dolphins in 2012, being in the locker room on a Wednesday, and some reporter was asking a question about what happened on Sunday, and I said, you can't ask that question. What do you mean? You're not allowed to ask questions about the game before it's Wednesday locker room. That doesn't happen anywhere else other than New England. So, you know, I just think that the way that the Patriots run things, and it's very interesting, the way that the organization is, you know, just sort of, you know, set up. There's unwritten rules of certain things, and exactly, if you're an objective reporter, then you're going to have the success that you want in answering the questions that you know you're going to get. One game at a time. Can't worry about tomorrow. We're focused on the Bills.
Gotta get better in all 3 phases. Yeah,
Yes.
you got to coach it better.
Got
to play it better. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, they've got Mac Jones totally programmed. Yeah, I mean, it's
good.
you know, like when they flipped the switch on Buzz Lightyear and got him to talk Spanish, like they flipped a switch on Mac Jones, and he went from this jovial kind of kid who, like, in the spotlight, kind of enjoying himself, to I'm just trying to you know, get better, and that's the way the play was designed, and I'm just trying to, you know, get the, you know, the best out of every single play. And I love it. It's his interviews are dreadfully boring, and I couldn't be happier.
You know what I really, really want? God, they've got to have a manual somewhere in that building. They have to have a manual of, this is how you answer questions for the media. I mean, it's not like Bill's going to be teaching this every single year for the last 25 years. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
They have to have a book on, these are how you answer questions. And they must have seminars of, here are the rookies. These are how you answer questions. Can I, for the love of God, get my hands on that? Like, I would love to. Am I right? Or am I like, there's gotta be a manual somewhere in that building that
I don't think it's written. I think they just absorb
Are
you.
you sure? I feel like
it
has to be written.
Yeah, they absorb you into their hive mind. Yeah, it's very anthropological in that way. And you know, rarely do you get a guy who colors outside those lines. And when you do, it's in this harmless way. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, clearly one of those guys. Matthew Judon, hilarious at the podium, but it's never involves saying something that they regret. You know what I mean? Like, they'll let you have a personality, but the minute you start talking about other teams, it better be, well, yeah, they're gonna give us their best, and we're gonna have to give them their best. And it's amazing to watch, and how other organizations can't pull this trick off is beyond me. What's going on, Nick? How you doing?
Hey, so Courtney, I just wanted to go back to hear about your early grind of your career and stuff. How you were just talking about that. I wanted to hear how you think that Mr. Pick J.C. Jackson is coming up after his grind of a career, coming undrafted in 2018 to the Patriots, and what he's surmounting to, hopefully, with a Brinks truck coming up very soon.
Do you know where J.C. Jackson went to school?
Maryland.
I think Maryland.
Okay, there we
Maryland.
go. That explains
That
it all.
man went to Maryland. Proud University of Maryland alum here, that football program. We love Mike Locksley. We love, that program down there, and that new Big Ten $120 million facility that they eked up and jumped out of the ACC. And now you're going to get a lot of recruits. It's like Winchester High School football. Winchester High School football was fucking triple option every year. It was like, oh, Winchester is, they're going to beat Woburn. It's like, no, you're not. You have Tua Tagovailoa's brother at quarterback. So anytime, like, literally, that's what you get. Maryland, like, with the way that you fall on your ass halfway through the season, that's what you're going to get. They also did lose one of their top wide receivers. A kid like snapped his leg in a kickoff, and it was terrible to watch. And but Raheem, was it Raheem Jarrett, or was it another kid? I can't remember. I don't watch too much Maryland football, but J.C. Jackson, yes.
So if he was a Terp, and he was
a Terp,
and every Terp is NFL ready, we all know that, right to the bottom of the roster, plug and play. There's going to be 68 of them all competing for Rookie of the Year next year. But how did J.C. Jackson not get drafted? I think, like, every college evaluator needs to, like, issue a paper scout-splaining himself. Like, how did you miss on this kid?
Okay. So again, I think a lot of it has to do with the visibility of the program at University of Maryland. So I can't remember, maybe it was 2017, 2018. I mean, Maryland was always underperforming. They were always getting their asses kicked by Clemson and Virginia Tech, and they were just very in a stalemate in the ACC. Until the school decided that they needed to get more visibility. They wanted to invest more in the football program. They switched over to the Big Ten. So that increased their financial dollars by about went from about getting $90 million a year to 120. And that's what the visibility of being in a bigger conference, even though you're going to get your asses kicked, in the Big Ten was all about. So they wanted to build up this Coalfield House, or it's not Coalfield House. I'm being silly, but they have a recruiting problem. The University of Maryland is in Prince George's County in the DMV. Do you know how much talent comes out of that county? A lot. And they go to different schools, and they go to big name schools. So it's taken a couple of years, and Mike Locksley in his third, fourth season under the helm, I mean, he is the reason that Vernon Davis, who was a great tight end for the Maryland Terrapins. Vernon Davis went to the University of Maryland. Where did Vontae Davis go? Remember him when he quit on the Bills midseason? Vontae Davis went to Illinois because Mike Locksley was there. So the pieces are in place. And but again, it's the visibility of the program. So having good players that went to the University of Maryland, it's kind of like falling on deaf ears. I hear this every single year from my friends, one of my best buddies, who was one of my my frat bros, and he's a big booster in the program, and they're always talking about these kids that come out of Maryland, and I'm just like, all right, cool, it's okay. Until Steph Diggs came on the scene, nobody was talking about the Terrapins football program. So part of it is, yes, it's the visibility, but in terms of J.C. Jackson and the way that he's come about, is this not the formula of what Bill Belichick loves to do? Bill Belichick loves to pick out the undrafted receivers, the Danny Amendolas, I'm not saying, obviously I know that Julian Edelman was drafted, but he was drafted in the seventh round. He likes to take a chance on the underdog. He loves
Jacoby
to
Myers.
Jacoby Myers. He loves to put the pressure on a player that is right on the cusp of greatness and really just kind of put it in their head that they have the capability to turn that big elephant on their shoulders and turn it around. So JC Jackson, Mr. INT, couldn't be happier for the guy. And I know the guys like Devin McCourty and, you know, the old men, as Mac Jones calls them, in the locker room. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the existing veteran relationships that are in that locker room. There's a reason that the Patriots re-signed Matthew Slater and Devin McCourty right after Tom Brady left. That was the cornerstone, and they needed to establish some leadership in that locker room. And JC Jackson has really picked up the pace and picked up, stepped into a role that Stephon Gilmore just was wishing to do. I mean, how many times have we talked about Stephon Gilmore since he left? I'm not saying that,
Right.
but listen, if we're looking at, the Patriots, and I saw the Patriots put out something, and JC Jackson loves to be a Patriot. Bill, I know, is kicking himself a little bit that he didn't get the chance to make things right, that he spent a record amount of $200 million in free agency, what, 60, 100, whatever guaranteed money, and you're not going to pay the number one cornerback in the NFL. I think that he's going to take a chance, and given how well and the consistency that JC Jackson has done, and you know that the Patriots, they do not pay for past performances. That is the one thing. That's what screwed Wes Welker. That's what screwed Julian Edelman. I mean, there was a number of different times where they kept him on an even keel in terms of a pay scale. And I think JC Jackson is approaching the Brinks truck, and I think that he will get a fine deal that will appease the man for many years and keep him as a cornerstone of this franchise, because they're going to need him. They're going to need him. Devin probably will. I mean, I'm hoping that when Devin retires, he'll give me the story. But I mean, he's got a couple more years left, and you're going to need that consistency. If you get built up in this organization, you are going to step into the role of being a leader. And, listen, I will tell you, Bill might not pay his offensive people. He does like to pay their defensive.
Mhm. Yeah, it's friggin' uncanny how much the JC Jackson story has mirrored the Malcolm Butler story.
Yes,
both
exactly.
undrafted, both took a year to kind of like establish themselves, but played well with the chances that they got, then earned a chance the second year, and then got paid. And the difference is that Butler, while he's kind of rallied lately for at least a season there, he was among the worst cornerbacks in football after they let him go. And you
Yeah.
just sitting there going, thank God they didn't get stuck with that.
No.
And they replaced him with the next JC Jackson. And I hope they keep this one, but I have every faith and confidence that if he leaves, they'll have another JC Jackson come along. They have this sick ability to do that. And you don't want to rely on that.
But here's the thing. I think that JC has shown the consistency on the field. I mean, it was
Right.
like he led the league in interceptions last year. What I don't know what position that he is this year. Is he?
Yes, he leads the league. Well, if he's among the league leaders, I will tell you this: since he came into the league in 2018, he's number one league wide, and he leads the league in passer rating when targeted, and was among the league leaders last year. So, and this is all without Gilmore, where we all said, well, all right, now he's got to be the number one. Is he ready for that? So, it's funny because you mentioned the Bills losing Tre'Davious White, and that's going to be an owie. I'm not discounting that, but Patriots lost their best corner before the season even began, and then traded him, and have just continued on unabated. So the Bills fans are realizing what it's like to be at the top, and it's not easy to stay there. And they no longer are. Where do you think the Pats got happening the rest of the way? They got 5 games left. They've already got more wins than they had last year. 2 against the Bills. Indy looks like they're legit, and then Jacksonville, and then they're going to face the Dolphins, who you've seen a ton more than I have. So where do you see the prospects, at least for the regular season, and then we'll put a pin in the
I mean, I do believe that game, that's, it's right after the new year. That's going to have a pretty big significance. That game is being played here in Miami. Maybe I'll show up. Maybe I'll I'll jack a press pass, even though you can't trade press passes. It can't be like, hey, I'm an employee of the Miami Heat. Can I get a Dolphins press pass? But I do think that game is going to have some great significance, and I think that the Dolphins, good for them. I do root for them. I am a Brian Flores fan. I hope everything that he does goes well. I mean, it's not as well as the New England Patriots. If they're beating the Patriots, then we're going to have an issue. But you remember that the Dolphins, they lost like 6 straight games after they barely beat the Patriots in that first game. And it was just kind of like the owie, and how did they lose to the Dolphins? I think that game is going to have some significance. Wishfully thinking, I hope that the Patriots beat the Bills twice, but if they split, that's fine. The Colts to me are a team that's, listen, I mean, they had one of the best. Jonathan Taylor is competing with Tom Brady, at least for right now, for MVP of the year. Whether or not he can stay healthy, for me to personally, yeah, Carson Wentz and Frank Reich, congratulations. But what, comeback player of the year? Why is Carson Wentz in the same conversation for comeback player of the year? Comeback player for what? For sucking?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's coming back, comeback player of the year because he sucked. So they definitely have a high-powered offense. They've got things figured out. They had one of the best run defenses, top 3 of the year last year. They have one of the best running games in the league. So, when you put things together, yeah, sure. I think it'll be a shootout. Where is that game being played? In Foxborough? Forgive me. I don't have
at Indy.
In Indy. Well, you saw the heebie-jeebies that Brady was, I was watching that game. Brady got some flashbacks of, when he was struggling early in that first half and he threw a couple of picks. I was like, Tom, you're not playing Peyton Manning. Like, get that out of your head for a hot second. You're playing Carson Wentz and Frank Reich's Indianapolis Colts here. But yeah, they're pretty legit. I would say that they have a very strong offense and a strong defense, and they will be probably the biggest threat to the Patriots. I say that the Patriots finish with 12 wins, 5 losses.
Damn, that would be
I think
anything.
It's going to take them. It's going to take them a lot. Bill's going to put everything on the line that he has against the Buffalo Bills. I think that once a few more weeks go by, we're playing Buffalo once again. It's going to be a little more of a chess match. A lot more eyes are going to be on the Patriots. I think that they're going to use that as a fine-tuning tool to make sure that they are playoff ready as one of the best teams in the AFC. And I think I do strongly believe that the Patriots will win 4 more games.
Oh, beautiful. Nick, you want to jump in here and then we'll say goodbye to Courtney?
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we wrap up, I just wanted to cover one thing we haven't yet, and that is Nick Folk. 18 points in the game. I mean, if we have Nick Folk scoring 18 points the rest of the season, I think we're taking every game.
Yeah,
well,
it's insane how comfortable.
They did activate Quinn Nordine. Remember when Quinn Nordine was like the hottest shit in preseason?
Mm-hmm.
I even was looking at him. I was like, damn, that kid's cute. He's got a personality. He's 21 years old, Courtney. Stop it. Stop it. No. Okay. Nick Folk, man. They seem to just be finding diamonds in the rough here. Who knew that Steven Gostkowski, who, by the way, just totally pulling a Jerry Thornton move of like, to, find the guy in the crowd. He was totally just sitting with the regulars,
Man of the people.
It's all about humility. You got to find like a world-class kicker that's just going to be chilling in the crowd, drinking beers with everyone else, man. You got Adam Vinatieri, you got Steven Gostkowski. Bill Belichick seems to find the great kickers. And listen, I don't know what it is, and I'll throw this back to you, Jerry and Nick. What the fuck is happening with all these kickers? Why has kicking become one of the hardest, easiest afterthoughts in the NFL? Over the last few years, it's really been the bane of the NFL's existence of like, can you kick the extra fucking point? Why? I don't understand what happened. Did they change the rules? I mean, you don't have Jamie Collins leaping over the middle of the offensive line. You can't do that stuff anymore. I just don't understand why.
Yeah, I mean, I get the extra point that they moved it back and they made it a competitive play again, even if it cost the Patriots maybe a Super Bowl. Like, all right, at least extra points are worth watching now.
Yeah.
The field goal thing is beyond my reckoning. I've never been able to figure it out. Kickers have always been weird to me. They're like closers in baseball.
Yeah.
And the best analogy I have for Nick Folk is he's Koji Uehara in 2013. Like, he was their fourth choice. They had an injury to Gostkowski. They brought in somebody else. It was a disaster. They settled for this guy, and he's he just finds a groove. And like, how is he out of football? And I say the same thing about Koji. Like, what was he doing floating around in the bottom of the Red Sox bullpen when he was that good? But you just never know. They're weird. It's a weird occupation. Nobody can figure it out. I just know this: when Folk gets out there, there's just no doubt. You know what I mean? Like, they can keep on throwing up the graphic, like, trying to put the bad juju on him about he hasn't missed a kick from inside of 50. It's the longest streak in the NFL or whatever. And it doesn't faze me because his kicks aren't even close.
Yeah.
They go over the center goalpost. He perfectly bisects the uprights. I'm like, works for me. And by the way, I loved Gostkowski being with the crowd right after they showed Bledsoe. And this is not a knock on Bledsoe. Appreciate everything he did here, but he's sitting up there in the owner's box with the scarf tied around his sweater, sipping like a Chablis or whatever, of the Cabernet.
Yeah, he's a wine snob now, man.
Oh yeah, it's got nice oaky notes, and you know what? The taste has aftertaste has a bit of juniper in it. And there's Gostkowski, who
black peppers.
And he had a coffee cup in his hand, but in my heart,
it had.
That was Irish. It was Irish coffee for sure.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, I'll never forget. I tried an Irish coffee in high school. We stole some Kahlua from one of my high school friends. One of their parents' things, and it was curdled. So we were trying to Irish coffee our Dunkins before the Winchester Woburn Thanksgiving game, and it was just like, it was like plopped in there, curdled, and we still drank it. It was one of the grossest things. I don't even know how I didn't throw up. I guess our stomachs are really nice when you're in high school like that, but yeah, Irish coffee for Gosky, you totally know that's how it's going to go down.
Yeah. Play us out with your story about going to the Patriots.
Oh, the
Christmas
Patriots
wrapping.
You guys are having Gotham Chopra, and you were saying that you were going to ask him, like, does Tom Brady's hair smell like cinnamon? Well, my although that year that I was a one-man band and I had my little camera, and the Wrap-A-Pat is always the best event for all the media. So it's on a Tuesday night. On the Patriots, they'll have everyone in the Prudential Suites. What is it? The Prudential Suites? Whatever. That's what's the SBLI suite?
Yeah, it's got an acronym for some company that you have no idea what they do or how to use their goods or services. But yeah, I've been in them and just said I'd love to support this company. Wouldn't know how to do it. I know what Gillette is.
Yeah, they do. So they have I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's either the Boys and Girls Club of Boston or UNICEF or someone. They bring in some inner city kids or the YMCA, and they treat them to a night of celebration and joy. It's a big event every year. It's called the Wrap-A-Pat. So they have these games where the little kids will take wrapping paper and they'll wrap the Patriots around. They have like a timing where they have to stick little bows and all that stuff on the Patriots, and it's timed perfectly for all of the local news guys. It's like Mike Lynch. I know Mike Lynch is retired, but it's gosh, why am I Levin Reed and all the Dan Roaches of the world, and Steve Burton, excuse me. So Steve Burton will go live at his sports hit, and he'll do the sports hit, and then he'll be like, all right, so for the sports, I'm watching Tom Brady get wrapped by these inner city kids. How you doing? And then there's just this commotion, and we're here for the holidays and all that stuff. So I was in the middle of, I'm not going live for my my television station in Providence, but I did get, I was, had my BlackBerry in one hand and my film in the other. And there was this one photo of Tom getting wrapped by the Patriots, and one of the kids stuck a bow right in his face, and in the blurriness of the 2010 BlackBerry, he went like this, and it was the perfect angle for his chiseled face before all the Botox and the filler, and and it was like the bow was right there, and I'm flipping through, and I'm like, wow. And as the seas reside, and everyone is just kind of knocking all the stuff away, and all of a sudden it was just me and Tom, and I'm looking down, and I'm starting to shake. I'm getting a little nervous. Listen, this is my first year covering the team. I'm getting nervous, and I'm, well, it's just me and Tom. It's Tom and me right here. And I just the first thing that came out of my mouth, I said, Tommy, look at the picture. And he looked, he goes, oh my God, I love it. And his eyes stuck to me. He's like, Court, I love it. I love the picture. And I just died. Oh God, you don't even need anything for Christmas. You just need that perfect photo of Tom looking at me, and he knew how hard I was working, and I was doing 2 phones and this, and he was like, Court, what a great picture. I love it. It's so great.
And he called you
Good job."
Court.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
but I don't know why. It's like the fucking little girl. Cause I don't know why. I was just like, Tommy, look. His sisters call him Tommy. I don't know what documentary I was watching where it was like Tom Brady's sisters. They used to call him Tommy. That's like a family thing instead of, I just was like, Tommy.
Not to be a one-upper, because I share in your joy
no,
of that.
please one up me.
No, he one time.
You can never not one up someone on a Tom Brady story. Are you kidding?
Well, he did one time call me Jer. So there you go. Yeah.
Wow.
First time I was on Dennis and Callahan morning show, and it happened to be my birthday, and I casually worked that into the conversation. And then John Dennis just said, oh, for the love of God, Tom, Thornton's dying here. Can you just wish him a happy birthday? And he said, happy birthday, Jer. Happy birthday. And that's the sound that I'm going to follow up into the tunnel of light when I shuffle off this mortal coil and go on to my great reward, if I live a life free of sin, which I'm trying to do. And I'm the best way to live that life, by God, is to talk about the Patriots with you guys. Courtney Fallon, thank you very much. Courtney, your podcast again.
Bad Signal Podcast. It is on Spotify, on Apple. I do have a job working for the Miami Heat, and I'm working in the broadcast division for the Heat. So yes.
And you're a great follow on Twitter at Courtney Fallon, I think,
at
with an
Courtney
underscore.
Fallon underscore.
Yep.
Yes,
And
on
on the gram
Fallon.
at Courtney Fallon, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time. This was a blast to talk about, and maybe in a few weeks when the Pats go down to Miami, we can talk again. But let's do it soon. And congrats on the move. Yet another person who left New England to go down to Florida. We're losing all our best and brightest down there, but I'm not bitter. I can deal with it. So, Nick Fasoli, thanks again for a great job, especially post Thanksgiving, post Black Friday, post all the work you've been doing on the freaking Cyber Monday. You've been working your ass off, and I appreciate it.
Cyber Monday. What are you guys selling? I mean, are those? Can you sell those sweatshirts?
Absolutely. This one with all the Patriots Super Bowl Roman numerals on it is available. You can also get your pod merch.
Oh,
some of it. Oh yeah, you get yourself a nice Mac Jones ugly sweater. It's the hottest item this Christmas. I promise you that. Well, again, so thanks for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Comment, give us reviews. It's a pleasure to talk to you once again. Courtney Fallon, Slancha.